And I'm your co-host, Boston Antunez, and welcome to this week's episode of The Theater Project.
How you doing, Boston? What's going on with you?
I'm doing good. I got my nails done, so I feel, look at the material. Look at the
Oh my
material.
gosh. Me too?
I'm really happy with, me too. I'm not sure we're on the same level, but
Okay.
good to see it. How about you? How are you doing?
I'm doing pretty well. Staying pretty busy.
Do you want to tell everyone what's going on with school? Where you go to school? What's happening?
Yes. So, as everyone knows, I go to Penn State University, and our classes are going back in person, or well, school is going back in person February 15th. So, that is where I will be going, and I will be getting my first apartment. And
Adult things, people. We're
I know
adulting.
I had to buy toilet paper and laundry detergent this week. So
That's
adults,
when you know.
I
That's when
know
you know
adults
you're a real adult.
hit me like a bus, but I'm very excited. All my classes are still on Zoom, except for a couple like piano, and even that class is still going to be socially distanced. So it's like half the class one week, the other half the next,
Right.
and so it's going to be alternating. So not too many students, and it's already a small class, but I'm still very excited to go back because this is my last year. So yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, and I'm hopefully transferring to my school's New York campus. So then Moana and I will be a 3-hour drive away from each other. So then I'm not allowed to have people in my dorms, but I can go bug Moana and her roommate at their apartment, hopefully when it's safe to do so. But yes, looking forward to us both being on the East Coast. I was an East Coaster for 2 years. You're East Coaster right now, but then you were East Coaster growing up for the
Yeah, I
most
took
part.
a 3 year break from being an East Coaster, but
Yeah, but we
back.
still had a whole summer together, so that was, you know, California love. Bum, 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 ba-da-dum, ba-dum. I love that song. Literally every time in North Carolina with my friends, they play that song. Like, it's Boston's favorite song. I'm like, just because I'm from California, like, doesn't mean that's my favorite song. I'm like secretly in the back. I'm like, okay.
That's like everyone in
Good.
California when like Sweetgrass, is that what it's called? Sweetgrass or something like that, country music would play and everyone's like, Moana, music of your people.
Oh yeah, they're like
Like a
literally. I was
band.
at dinner. I was at dinner last night with my family, and every time I say your name, they go Moana, make way, make. And one time, my brother-in-law was like, "You have a friend named Moana? Like the movie just came out." I'm like, yes, I'm friends with a 4-year-old. I'm friends with a 4-year-old whose name is Moana. She's named after the movie. I was like, she was born what? That's 15 years before the movie came out. Like, she
Baby
came
Kai
first.
started doing that now. Baby Kai will go, he'll just randomly say he loves Moana. Don't know who showed this movie to him because it wasn't any of our family, but he'll just go around saying Moana. He says Wana, make way, make way.
Oh,
And then my grandpa tried to tell him that my name was Moana, and he was like, "Sissy's Moana. Sissy's name is Moana." And he literally started running in circles. He was like, "Not Wana, not Wana. Wana's on the TV. Sissy, not Wana." And he had like he was.
wait until he figures out what your name is.
I
Wait
know.
until he like puts those together. He's like, "That's you. That's you on the TV." For those of you who don't know, Baby Kai is Moana's brother and my nephew. Uh, so even though that doesn't make sense because you're my friend, that's not your kid, but he's my nephew. Uh, and hopefully the two of us gang up on Moana and overthrow her because Kai's my buddy.
Overthrow. So I'm in a throne. Period.
Oh, let's not go a little crazy.
On a good note, with a compliment from Boston to me. Doesn't happen often, but thank you. Our guest for today's episode has a long list of fantastic credits. He is most notable for Cleveland Musical Theater as the founding artistic director and the CEO and founder of Work with BWAY, an intensive musical theater training program for rising professionals, which I have had the pleasure to do myself and absolutely loved it. So everyone, please give a warm welcome to Miles Sternfeld.
Woo.
Hey,
Hi.
Hey.
how's it going?
Good.
How are you?
How are you?
I'm doing good, thanks.
Good. It's nice to meet you.
It's nice
I've been looking forward to
you.
it. Yeah, super
Yeah.
awesome.
Where are both of you right now?
Moana.
I'm in North Carolina right now.
And then
Cool.
I'm in California. So
Oh, wow.
we're on
Opposite
the two
ends
different
of the
coasts.
country.
Yeah, that's how we've been operating. There was one time where we were able to get together, I think a couple months ago, but other than that, we've been separated. It's been sad.
Where are you at right now?
I'm in Connecticut right now.
Oh wow, Connecticut.
Yeah.
Yeah. So from Moana talking to me about work with BWAY and all that kind of stuff and what you've been able to do with your career, what about directing and being on the other side of the table appealed to you maybe more than perhaps performing did?
It's a really good question. Well, I think I always was a director. I just really believe that we're all meant to do something, and I think we actually usually show signs of that very early on as a child, but I just don't think we're aware enough. We don't have the self-awareness to really know like, oh, I'm directing right now, but when I think back, I was always a director. I was always putting people together in my class and casting them in different roles and helping write the script and then wanting to put the show together and present it in front of the class. And I think I naturally fit into that role, but I could sing. I was a boy soprano. So everybody like 8, 9, 10 years old wanted me. They were like, oh my God, you have a voice and you need to do this show and you should audition for this and all of that. And obviously I loved it because I wanted to be in musical theater and be a part of that world. So I think that was a natural fit at that time. So I kept going along with it and went through the audition circuit of auditioning for colleges and wanting to be a musical theater major and thinking like, oh, I'm 17. I have my whole life planned out. I'm going to go to college for musical theater. I'm going to graduate and move to New York. I'm going to audition for Broadway shows. Maybe at some point down the road, that would be fun to direct. And then once I really realized it was for my high school senior project, it was really popular in my area in Cleveland, Ohio, where I grew up, to do a show for your senior project. And usually people would direct themselves in something, in a role that they wanted to do. So I knew that I wanted to do something really special. And I knew I wanted to do something for a really good cause. So I did a benefit concert. I use the term concert very loosely. It was very much a fully staged one night production of the Who's Tommy. And we raised $10,000 for Broadway Cares, which was amazing.
Wow.
And we really wanted to find a way to get the community involved and get them excited and do something different. So I literally Facebook messaged Adrienne Warren. These were like during the Bring It On days, and was like, would you want to play the Acid Queen? And she responded back and was like, yeah, totally. Like, no one's ever going to ask me to do this again. And Nick Blameyer, I messaged him on Facebook and he came in and played Tommy. And like, we just had this really sick cast. And even during that, I was like, this is amazing, but like, I'm going to school for musical theater. I don't think directing's my thing. But that was really the first moment when people started saying
about like a director debut. Like, that's pretty,
I guess.
Legit, right?
Yeah. Well, and people just started saying like, oh, you're really good at this. And it was kind of in a different way than when I would perform, because I think once you get in high school, people start to really come into their own. A lot of people are really talented, really disciplined, and I think people started to recognize something even more special that was really exciting for me to be like, oh, I really never thought that this was it. Even though now when I think back, I'm like, this is exactly what I was supposed to be doing. Right. So I went to school for musical theater at Point Park University, and it was a great experience, but I knew like from the day I got there, I was like, I want to go back to the summer and do what I was doing before. Like, I'm in the wrong place. Because I love being a part of all aspects of the process. I love working with designers. I love working with actors. I love working with the music team. Being able to be a part of all facets of the process for me is the most exciting thing. And I even did a little bit of that in high school. I did some assistant stage managing and assistant directing, and worked in costumes a little bit, worked in sound. So I think I was sort of dabbling. I just didn't know it. And so being able to do all of those things together and really be involved with everyone that's part of that creative process is what I love most about being on the other side of the table.
Right. Awesome. Oh, what a good story. What a good autobiography to start writing.
That is awesome though, because I feel like everybody in high school, especially in theater programs, is very much like what you were saying, how you felt at the beginning, like musical theater in college, Broadway, like that's the goal for everybody. So for you to find, I don't know, kind of your own path while taking that path, I think is amazing. And especially, I feel like a lot of people don't, I don't know. I mean, I don't personally know a lot of people going into the field of directing, at least not yet.
I don't either. Especially that age, I feel like you said, everyone's like Broadway, I want to be booked and blessed. And so many people take so many different routes, like you said, and it's awesome that was for you to be able to like know that at a young age, like, no, this is what I want to do. Because I feel like in a way, there's not many young directors out there. And so, for those people who get younger people to be on that side of the table, I think just makes the whole like auditioning process like way better all around, because, you're more comfortable, there's people your age, and, they understand what it's like to be, around your age or what have you. So I think it's super awesome that there's a lot, that people are able to take that path sooner. Rather than later.
Yeah, and I think that's also a really good point, because I tell my students this a lot, when they're applying for college, is there's so much pressure, I remember, in high school, because everybody wants to know where everybody's going to get in, and did you get into this school, and did you get into that school, and did you get into this conservatory program? And I really recommend for young performers, artists, theater makers to seriously consider a BA program. I think there's this weird stigma that like BA is for people who weren't good enough to get into the conservatory program. And that is totally not the case. And if you are interested in other aspects of theater, then like, I wish I knew what a BA program had to offer at the time, but I felt so much pressure to be like, I need to prove to everyone that I'm going to get into CCM and blah, 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 And then it's like, you graduate and none of that matters anymore. And
oh my God, completely.
Yeah. So I think that's such a good point, because I want people to be able to have that kind of hindsight on the situation.
Yeah. I love that you said that, because I went to performing arts high school my last 2 years of high school, and it was so, because me and Moana went to high school together for the first couple of years, and we just did theater as an after school thing. It was just fun. And then I went to performing arts high school. It was like, that was what you did. And it kind of kicked me in the ass a little bit, and like was like, oh, okay, this is how this works. And I found myself applying to all these schools I didn't want to go to, because our people around me were like, this is what you do when you go to musical theater. Like, you apply to all these schools, you go to Unifieds, you do all this, you get a BFA, same like you said, a BA, whatever. And as soon as because I go to school now for musical theater with AMDA in Los Angeles, and my friends who go to like those programs and like, at big universities, all that doesn't matter anymore, because now everyone's in college and doing their own thing. But that's such a good point that you said that, because it's so like that in high school, and there's like, no, there's other routes you can take. There's other paths that allow you to still be involved in the arts. It's just maybe, doesn't mean you have to be a Broadway baby when you're like 12.
Right. Yeah. And they're all valid and they're all great, but I really think everyone should really weigh the options and consider everything that's on the table beforehand, and not get too caught up in the pressure of it.
Right. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, and speaking of those different paths to take, we wanted to know what your inspiration was to start up Work with BWAY.
Okay, this is kind of a crazy story, and I legally can't say too much about it. I know, very mysterious. But I inherited a portion of another program early on when I moved to New York, and I had the option basically to do something with these contacts and this content that I had created, or, just keep focusing on directing and my theater company and just kind of push it to the side. And I really felt like it was a great opportunity to craft the theater program, the perfect kind of intensive musical theater training week in New York that I wish I had in middle school and high school. So that's when I started to really think about my own experiences and think about what could I do that would be different and special and add to all the other amazing programs that are already out there. And so that's kind of where the name came from, is that I wanted it to be approachable. I wanted people to know that we're a young group of people. I didn't want to try and become this like stuffy, very kind of like, oh, we're so, so special and so amazing kind of thing. I really wanted everyone to feel welcome, and yeah, just super approachable. And so that's kind of where the name came from. And then we also had the idea of doing stuff that was show themed, because I always felt like so many programs that I had gone to were amazing, but there's always that competitive element to it where you're like looking at everyone and you're like, who's better than me? You're like, who's gonna get called up to do this, and I don't really think that's that conducive in a learning environment. So I felt like doing a week centered around a show would alleviate a lot of that pressure, because everyone would come in with a common interest, and there'd be opportunities for us to create classes that centered around those shows that we were working together in a group and collaborating together. And it all wasn't just going up and being coached and having to watch like 25 other people sing and get critiqued and be judged. So that's kind of some of the ideas that went into actually crafting how the program would function and what the curriculum would be. But yeah, it kind of fell into my lap, and then I just had to do something with it. And so that's what I came up with. And it's been going on now for 5 years, I think. We've had the program. Yeah.
That is awesome. And I, for those who don't know, I did work with BWAY's Mean Girls Intensive, which was amazing. And that was the first intensive I did. And I would definitely say all the goals that you just said you wish to achieve, you most definitely did achieve. And all the people who were in my group, we literally have like 3 different group chats. We have one on text,
I love that.
Snapchat, and we're all texting literally all the time about the classes and how much we enjoyed doing all that and collaborating. And it definitely didn't feel, because we were also talking about how scared we were going into it. We were like, oh, is this going to be like all the like
cutthroat?
Like everyone's just like, I'm the best singer, I can out sing her. But it was very, very uplifting, not only from the other students, but the teachers as well. And what you were saying about being approachable, like we were very intimidated by all the people who were there, because obviously they're very big names and very good at what they do, but they still made that balance between professionalism, and also like, you can talk to me if you need to. Like, this is collaborative, this is constructive. We're not just here to tear you down, tell you you're not cut out for the business. And I absolutely loved it.
Oh, I'm so glad to hear that.
And speaking of that intensive, it was online, which is new.
Yes, it was.
Yes, it was. That's new for you guys, obviously, because of the pandemic and everything. So we wanted to know how the pandemic has affected your profession, and due to social distancing and all that, from auditioning to working on the intensives.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, another thing that I do is with my theater company, Cleveland Musical Theater, we have our own unified audition event that we normally do in Cleveland. And we have 20 plus schools come together, and you can do workshops, film your pre-screen auditions, and then audition for all of these schools. And we do that over Columbus Day weekend in October. So moving the intensives at Work with Broadway online was kind of simple in comparison to moving the unified auditions, which was like a huge shift. Also, I think because taking the intensives and moving them online, it's something that can happen very last minute. if we needed to make that kind of decision. So, but figuring out how we were going to move unified auditions onto a Zoom call was a ton of work. And it also was a decision that I had to make like very early on in the pandemic, because that was in October and the pandemic started in March, and people usually start signing up very early in the year for that program. So I wanted to make sure that I was communicating to them that, like, yes, this is in fact something we can still even do, that we're not necessarily going to cancel. So that kind of became the trial for me, was figuring out how are we going to do that. And then that laid down a lot of the groundwork for running the intensives, which is just a lot of complicated Zoom call scheduling, and making sure that there's always somebody running a room, and figuring out how to use breakout rooms and things like that, just getting really creative and hopefully not taking away from the experience at all, but being able to utilize the technology and actually add to the experience. Mm-hmm. And I've certainly found that in my Build Your Book class. I created a PowerPoint, which obviously, Moana, you saw, and I hope took plenty of notes on. And I found that to be like super helpful. So moving out of the pandemic, I'm like, this is so great. Like maybe I'll get a mini projector and I'll set this up in my class, or, because showing video examples, I've realized has been something that's super helpful and really interesting for the students. So right. It's definitely shifted it in some really positive ways.
Right. And building off of that, what you just said, besides, that, would you say anything from being online that you maybe want to incorporate once things start to get back to normalcy, hopefully sometime soon, like any major components or aspects, whether it's meeting with different Broadway artists or what have you, that maybe you would want to incorporate into Work with BWAY or your other theater companies?
Yeah, well, I think one thing that's been really great about it has been accessibility. And we've been able to have students do these programs from all over the world, whereas obviously before you'd have to be able to get to New York to do the program. And we have had students come from other countries or, the West Coast, things like that. But the online element has made it extremely accessible for people. So I definitely would like to keep an element of that moving forward so that we can keep it as accessible as possible. And it's just been so cool. We had a girl from the Philippines do our unified auditions, and she was on the complete opposite time schedule. So she was sleeping all during the day, all night, waking up, and then, doing like the graveyard shift, basically, of college unified auditions, which was amazing. Right. So it definitely gets a little crazy with the time zones and all of that, but it seems like people are willing to stay up all night if they have to on the other side of the world to work with some of these people. So that's been really cool and something I definitely want to keep moving forward.
Yeah, even in school right now, I have people, there's my classmates that are in Africa, and it's the same thing where, you're so dedicated to something that it's like, well, this is what I have to do now, and it's, to that girl that was in Philippines, I think just that goes to show how people, even during these crazy times, people are still willing to participate in the arts. And I think that's something that I hope people take away, that just because we're online doesn't mean the arts have died, because there's still sporting events and all these other sorts of activities that are still happening in the world. But, I think it's going to take a lot more for the arts to go away, and I think it says something that there's so many theater companies, whether you're in school for college or what you're doing with Work with BWAY and all this other stuff, people are still willing to work and to work towards a goal. And hopefully when Broadway opens back up, that's what I'm excited about. That's going to be crazy.
Yeah.
I'm sure like the process to like get those shows running again, but I saw like a video where it was like moments in musical theater, I think, are going to get like standing ovations when it it's like certain scenes from musicals.
Oh, absolutely.
Like people are going to be like bawling their eye. Like that's what I'm most looking forward to, is, when that stuff opens again,
Oh yeah. I mean, that first theater experience of being in a Broadway theater is going to be so incredible. And I really do feel like people, especially in the theater community, are going to feel so much closer than we ever have before after this, because we've been separated for so long. But thank God for Zoom.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know what we would have done without Zoom.
I know, truly, it would have been crazy.
I think we talked about it in another episode. It was one of our earlier episodes. Just the opportunities that we've been able to get during this pandemic. Like, obviously it's terrible that so many people have lost their jobs, to this, which is awful, but it also created so many different opportunities that wouldn't have been available if Broadway was still open. Like, for example, because I know a lot of people who have been taking like master classes or workshops with people who didn't normally do workshops or master classes. And like you said, it's available to people who maybe wouldn't even have been able to come to New York to do them. So the accessibility and opportunities that like Zoom and that the arts have taken during this time, I think is incredible.
It's super special. Yeah, super.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, well, thank you for answering those questions. So now we're gonna
Of
maybe
course, great question.
some of your hot takes. So we're gonna give you a couple topics, and these are kind of broad, or certain things in the theater world that are talked about and what have you.
Okay.
Just hear your opinion. Let it all, whatever you think. With
Okay, I'm kind of scared. Oh, I say do whatever you want. It's your body, it's your life. We can always cover that stuff up. So yeah, and also sometimes it's like super cool. It's like, oh my God, that's perfect for this role or this character. It feels like you literally just walked into the room. If you were like Roger Trent or something like that, and you walked in with like a whole sleeve of tattoos, I'd be like, yeah, he's such a rocker.
I'm glad you said that.
Yeah.
Me and Moana both have tattoos in our arms. So
yeah, do what you want.
And I think, hearing that, and some people are like, that's never gonna happen. And I always say, this probably just make myself feel better, where it's like, if they're gonna cut me based on my tattoos, then I probably wasn't fit out for the role to begin with. If sometimes I get it, period pieces, what have you. Then I think about it too. If you're doing like Hello Dolly, they're all wearing long sleeves anyway, so. Yeah,
no, I really hope moving forward, post-pandemic, all of that kind of stuff is like no longer even a thing behind the table.
Yeah, I know even Boston and I have had people literally come up to us and say like, your career's over, you're done. You have that little Saturn on your wrist, you're done. You're not gonna have to.
You're out.
You're done. You're out of the business. I'm like, oh
well.
No. What I would say is, if you want to, you always can cover it up yourself. If you're going in for something, period, and you're like, this is going to be distracting, then just like, you can always cover it up yourself too, if you feel like that helps,
Yeah.
But like, I never really pay attention to those things, to be honest, because I know it's not really a determining factor.
I'd like to hear it.
I have so many opinions about songs. Moana knows this. Well, okay, here's what I would say. I don't think it's usually appropriate for everything. I will say for my college auditions, I sang 2 Sondheim songs, which was probably a mistake, but I stood by that decision, and I think some people really appreciated it. I think you really need to just come in and show us what you do best, always taking into consideration what you're going in for and what they're asking for. I think everyone should have a Sondheim song in their book, especially if you're going in for a Sondheim show. I don't know why you wouldn't sing Sondheim, because I think we need to know that you can sing Sondheim, and a lot of people can't. So I don't necessarily think it's right for every audition, but especially if it is a Sondheim show, or it's a show that's very musically challenging and you want to show that you can work in crazy time signatures, then I think, yeah, do it. Absolutely.
Great.
Yeah, I feel like there was this period of time where people all of a sudden were very angry about that, and my thought is that the best musicals ever written were based on plays or novels. So I don't really see how it's any different. I think most great musicals are based on some source material, so I just kind of view film as another source of material. But I think I don't care for it when it feels like it's a box office grab, you know, when it feels like we're doing this just to make a ton of money and for like no artistic credibility, you know? So I think that's when I'm like, I don't know, like, do we really need that? But again, that's really more a criticism of the story itself than it is of it being based on a film. You know, it's more so if it's based on the success of that film than the actual film itself. And interestingly enough, I feel like most of the best musicals based on films in like the last 10 years have been on not so well received / successful films. You know, like I think Waitress, Kinky Boots, Once, like I had no idea anything about those films, you know? And like, I'm really glad that somebody saw that material and was like, oh my God, yes, this needs to be a musical. So yeah, I think it's great when it's artistic and done really well. I think it's great. I've been working on a show that we did a reading of called Peter Pan, it's like her in parentheses, Pan. And Alice Ripley played Hook and did like a gender bending thing. And that was amazing. So I'm like all for that. I think where it becomes a bit complicated is that most of the authors are not going to be weighing in on those decisions. So it is a little complicated in terms of like licensing a show and choosing to change genders when it's written a certain way and like following those rules, but also having creative license. So I do hope that there's a bigger conversation about that moving forward. And I'm sure people in the casting world and in that union are already having that conversation about how we move forward with existing material and what we're allowed to do there and what we're not allowed to do. And I hope that they make that as easy as possible for us to gender bend and not even have to think about gender necessarily.
Right, absolutely.
Yeah, I saw Amber Riley, because this was the one role that I was like, oh my gosh, a female in this role? No. And it was Audrey 2 in Little Shop of Horrors. And I saw Amber Riley do that.
She was amazing.
God send. She's insane. Like I didn't expect any less because it's Amber Riley, but still when I was going in, I was like, can it be done? And then it's like, yeah, it just has to be done well and still stay true to the story. And you're just like putting your own twist on it. Like I feel like that's what art is like you're taking something that's already been made and you're making it your own so that you can relate to it more. That way the audience can relate to the role in the show more.
Absolutely. And I love breaking something open and seeing it in a new way. So it's all really a big question of just making it work musically and being able to, you know, support that person's vocal range, whatever it might be.
Yeah, and I, you know, as someone, I have in my book, I don't use it for auditions, but for more coverings or stuff like that are like female songs in male keys, because I find a lot of the time, sometimes better stories to tell, because I feel like emotionally they're written, you know, a lot better. But seeing with couples, you know, certain roles, I think like a Millie or something like that wouldn't necessarily work out for the storyline. But I think of like the last 5 years, that would be like, I think would be great, you know, to do with a gay couple or a lesbian couple, what have you. And I think, like you said, it's about keeping the integrity, you know, from the original author or writer, what have you. And I think as we move forward with theater, hopefully we see more stuff like that, because then it's bringing in a whole new group of people who are willing to see, you know, that type of art.
Absolutely. Oh, this is such a difficult question. Okay, a lot of times I do feel like it depends on the role. How do I answer this? Okay, well, I do feel like acting is the most important, especially for me when I'm casting a show. That's the main discipline I'm considering. However, I do feel like there is an element of screening someone vocally with the music department before it gets to that place, you know? So there's definitely conversations that happen behind the table of like, oh my gosh, this person, I love them. And they're like, yeah, they're great. I don't know if vocally they're where we need them. And, or if they vocally have the range for this, or to do this 8 times a week. So those conversations do happen. But also sometimes I'm like captivated by someone because I'm like, wow, that voice, so amazing. And then I want to work with them more and see where they can go as an actor. So a lot of it's so woven together for me. And I think if you are a really good singer, then you are approaching it from a storytelling perspective. You're approaching the song. So that informs so much of what you're going to do vocally that I hope that they go somewhat hand in hand. But that's not always the case. Sometimes there's, conversations about that. But it's really magic when it's like, it all feels like, oh, this person vocally is like so perfect and they have the heart and they're compelling and the character fits like a glove. So that's like the most exciting moment where you get the pixie dust in the air and you're like, oh my God, we found it in the person. This is amazing.
Right.
Yeah.
It's nice to hear, those, I feel like those are a lot of questions that, are still on the table. So it's nice to hear someone who's, in the industry working with these people or behind the table, hear these opinions and know that not everything in some instances is as, like you said, going back to the beginning where it's so like, this is how things work. Things are changing, things are evolving, and one step at a time, certain things that were probably seen the same way 15 years ago are nothing anymore, So
yeah.
Thank you for answering those. And before we wrap up, we just have one more question. Do you have any tips or advice for any aspiring performers or directors or whatever field in like the theatrical world?
I think I would go back to what I said earlier, which is like really explore as many aspects of the theater in your early education as possible. I think it's so important for an actor to know what is going on in the costume department and what's going on in the sound department and what's going on in the pit, and to have experience working in those different departments, because it's just going to make you understand the process more. You're a part of this big working machine and you're kind of at the center of it because you're the person on stage. So being able to have a language for these different elements, I think really helps you as an actor and can inform a lot of your choices on stage. So that would be my biggest advice for a young person in theater would be like, go to your nearby theater and just like ask if you can intern in one of the departments on a show, and don't feel like you always have to constantly be working for the lead of this show or the next big thing that you want to do. You have downtime. So I think it's a really great experience to explore the other elements that make the production happen.
Awesome.
Well, very eloquently said. But thank you so much for joining us today, Miles. It has been such a pleasure to sit down and hear all of your knowledge and everything that you have to share with us. And the Theater Project was so honored to have you on today. And we can't wait to see what Work with BWAY continues to do for young artists. So if you haven't checked them out already, head on over to Work with BWAY and check out their intensive that they have going on.
Cool.
Thank you both.
Miles.
Thank
Bye.
you.
Thanks.
Well, another huge thank you to Miles Sternfeld for joining us here today. And if you're not already, make sure to go follow Work with BWAY at Work with BWAY on Instagram and Facebook, as well as workwithbway.com to check out all their intensives, masterclasses, workshops, and everything that they have going on over there.
Yes, and adding on to that, if you're not already following Bohemian Arts on Instagram, what are you doing? You should be following the whole time. It's the best way to see everything TTP related, and we have some really good promos. So if you're not, make sure to go check them out on Facebook and Instagram. And with that being said, you can also find everything BA related on the Bohemian Arts website, and you can donate and find out how to become a Bohemian. And also, I am teaching musical theater dance classes every month, and 100% of those proceeds will go to the Theater Project. And we're really looking forward to creating new content and having a lot of fun guests and hopefully you're able to join us for those classes. So yeah, thank you everyone for watching, and we'll see you next time.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.